Welcome to the Talking Timelines podcast. We are four women with 4 points of view and four accents with one common goal: to share insights and information about what's going on in the world from a higher consciousness perspective. No BS, no PC, just lots of ideas that you won't hear on mainstream media. We chat, we laugh, and most of all, we shed and share light. Join us each week as we talk timelines.
Hello everyone, welcome to Talking Timelines episode 27, and today we are going to be discussing the social matrix. This is something Laura's been making some notes on, thankfully, because I didn't. So I'm going to hand it straight over to Laura and she can share what she's written.
So I actually heard about this through somebody else who kind of distilled it down, and because there's this video that I watched about this was about 3 hours, so there was a lot of information, and I thought it was really interesting because we know about the matrix and we kind of know about, well, the components of it, and this particularly was about the social web that is kind of weaved in society and humans that we're completely unaware of, and yet how it's operating. And one of the really interesting things about it is that we're born into it and we don't really have a choice because it's something that we've all agreed to on some level. And I'm going to, like, I'll go through the notes that I have and kind of we can discuss it from there. So basically, it's the elements and institutions are used by our minds as reference points and anchors to construct our sense of reality and how we should live our life. So basically, he's saying that we've kind of bought into, through our collective consciousness, this is what reality is, and this is how our lives should be lived. And it shows up in many, many different ways. And he's saying that humans are deeply social beings, and we are a species that are co-creating reality together, and we use each other. He uses that this social fabric, he calls it, to build a web of reality that we can all participate in, but we do so completely in an unconscious manner. So he says we're unaware of the construction that we've made, and we confuse that for reality itself. So we're kind of unaware. It's this interesting kind of loop that we don't even realize that we've constructed this thing that we think it's reality because we don't know of anything else. And he's saying that society is structured and we're opaque to the process of what's going on, that 99% of everything we know and believe came from society. We didn't discover this on our own. So it's basically like all the beliefs and everything, and how we look at the world and how we look at ourselves. They're not ours. They're basically, we've kind of absorbed it and we've bought into it. So he's basically saying these are the different ways it's done. And I think this is really important to realize how pervasive this is. So it's through media, books, news, entertainment, movies, music, and celebrities. So it's coming at us in all different ways. Public intellectuals, there are people that we look up to for their accomplishments. The internet, social media, Google, Wikipedia, they're sources of info, but where does that information come from and is it actually true? So there's not even an impulse to question it. Like Wikipedia now is where people go to and they're reading about definition of these things and information. Where is that information coming from? So basically, it's saying that there is a matrix, just like everything else, that is controlling all of this.
Yeah.
And he says that our past, shapes how you interpret the information you received. So based on your environment, right? So there's a filter you have. So you're interpreting this information. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it this? Is it that? I mean, just to give an example, really clear about this is that my parents, I live in the US, my parents were always Democrats all the way, Democrats, Democrats. So I grew up I'm a Democrat because my parents are Democrat. I knew nothing about it. I'm not interested in politics, but I'm a Democrat and I voted Democrat because that they did. And that's a perfect example. Now I'm completely not involved in politics at all. But the thing is that that's a perfect example of, well, of course you are. Just like religion, all these things are kind of affecting us. He talks about school. This was really interesting. School boards determine what gets taught, but how do we know that that's correct? And who's controlling the school boards? Many times it's parents who control it, and they're ignorant too. They're just passing on information. They're just passing on what they learned in the system itself. And he's saying that there's no incentives to question anything because we go along with the system. We get rewarded. We get good grades. We get credentials. We have peer-reviewed journals, which is really interesting because many people's careers depend on peer-reviewed journals. So you need to write only what they will accept.
Hmm.
Because if you know they're not going to accept this, the big institutions, this is what you have to write. So everything is being filtered. And he's saying that it's a vicious cycle and it's part of the collective human mind. And what happens is that every element in this justifies every other element in a self-serving way. So it's this circular
Hmm.
thing that you can point to, all these different things that kind of justify each other. There's no incentives to question the information that you're getting in school because you get grades, you get advancement, you get applauded and rewarded by your parents when you do good. He said, so all you're really doing is memorizing what's being taught, which may or may not serve you or be correct because the system has it that you need to get a job after you're doing all this to get a
Hmm.
job. So you have to comply with what they're teaching you.
Hmm. Yeah.
Then he talks about how economy rules education. All the big universities, he says they're not about education. They're about the funding that they receive, the millions of dollars from all the, especially the Ivy League schools, and how the higher up, like if you, he and even said something like if you have a link on your website to a journal, something that's by the Harvard Business Review, for example, you'll get a higher ranking than something else because it's all feeding back to those.
Hmm.
So it's an economy. Education is actually an economy. Big business is the top of the search engines. We know money is a social construct. What's really, really interesting about this, he says this is a survival system, both individually and collectively, meaning it's set up so that if you're not in the system, you really can't survive.
Hmm.
It's very, very difficult. And he says it's very, very sophisticated because nobody really sees the system for what it really is. I mean, we can think we are more awake. We can think we kind of know what's going on. He says, but it's so sophisticated that there are things running that we're not even aware of. He says science is the ultimate authority, but how do we know how valid the information is? Now, we know lately people are saying, trust the science. Yet those research projects are funded by people who want a certain outcome,
Hmm.
right? So you have to see who is doing the studies, and
Hmm.
that's where it's funded. So it all kind of traces back. Now, finally, I got to the end of, this web. I'm like, okay, well, what is the resolution for this? And he had an interesting solution is you can't break out of the matrix because basically we're the world we're living in is this matrix. He said, but if you're aware of what it is and you learn how to think for yourself, you can question information and know the system behind it, then you can decide for yourself. So I think that's, it may sound so obvious, but the more you learn about how this is working, the more I think people will say, gee, do I have options
Hmm.
for things that we think we must do?
Hmm.
Do you have to go to public school, which we know is not the case? Do you have to go to college? Now, a college degree doesn't even mean anything anymore. Before, it meant, oh, if you don't have a college degree, you're not going to get a job. Now it doesn't mean anything. All these things and working and the whole 9 to 5 system is breaking down. So I think a lot of it, the system is breaking down on its own. People are waking up and they're not buying into the system, but I still think we have a long ways to go. And I think the more people are educated, the more people realize they actually do have they do have the power to decide. That's what will ultimately break the system and get
Hmm.
us out of this. But
Yeah.
I think people are so indoctrinated into the system. They almost want it. I think there's a safety in knowing that, they always say like children need discipline, or they need to feel that they're being protected. So the kid that's just allowed to run around and do whatever doesn't really feel cared for. I think by nature, humans are like that when there is some system that they feel that's behind them.
Well, people like to think that their leaders are protecting them, don't they? That's one of the first things out there, like
Well,
the. the fear that is put out, for instance, about alien people coming into the country from other countries and raping our women and stealing our jobs and criminals and stuff like that, puts that fear into people's consciousness, and they think, oh great, we need to be protected from them. So the divide and conquer is a big part of the system as well.
And it's partial reality too, because look what's happening in the UK right now with all the immigrants that have come in, illegal immigrants. I don't know what their leader's doing, but like there's people that will not even go out because rapes are so rampant right now over there, and beatings and death. Like it seems like the people that the protectors, the people that they vote for, they're not protecting these people.
Yeah, I watched a video the other day, and I can't remember the politician's name now. It was a younger woman, and she was talking live to a group about the the dangers of Islam, and obviously the Islamic community was saying, we're a peaceful religion, and she said she read out all these things, the whole list of problems, linked to Islamic terrorism and so on and so forth, and that in some of these countries it's still legal to marry a 9-year-old girl. It's legal to marry a 9-year-old girl in some of these countries. That the girls are being murdered by family members and raped, and the girl gets put in prison if she reports it, and things like that. So there's some areas of society that are so broken down that I don't think there are people in the system as it is that have got the ability to change that. But you can't lock everyone up in prison. That's not the way this is going to work. But my take on it is that we need to raise our consciousness. We need to educate people to the importance of compassion, heart-centered connection, and that raises the frequency. And then the projection of the outside world is going to change naturally, because we are the projector, the movie maker, we are the actor, we are the director, we are powerful co-creators. And this is the biggest lack of education out there, because the people that have been trying to teach it, and you know what I'm like about the spiritual community, it's got too woo-woo for your average guy on the street. It's too woo-woo. This doesn't need to be like that, but people can be educated in an in-between way to, this isn't just happening outside of you. This is something that is part of you and your ancestral lineage, and that we need to look at it and educate people on that level. That's the way I see it anyway. That's to me, that's the only way this is ever going to be changed permanently.
I agree with you. It's all tied to our level of consciousness and awareness. I was looking at a interview yesterday on YouTube. There was this one girl, she's in her 20s, and she just, I think, surpassed Taylor Swift in income, net worth. So almost a billionaire. She never went to college or university or anything like that. She was a dropout for college. She's someone that is Asian. She's someone that is, I think, born in America. She's very impressive. And here's the thing, her parents must have known something, because usually when people are kids, they're playing games on iPads, or they're just playing in what we know as a limited playground or sandbox, based on, okay, that person's like, 8 years old or 10 years old or 12 years old. They should be doing this or that. It's like, well, here's what's happening, because what this family did for this girl is they didn't give her any money, but they were educated, but they were educated in a way that they knew that, like most of us, say, for example, if it's Friday, we're going out, let's go party or whatever. We'll have some drinks, cocktails, meet with the girls, this or that, whatever. But what these people are doing is they're becoming experts in what they gravitate towards, whether it's ping pong, table tennis, or code, or creating a bot, all of that stuff. So this girl, when she was in second grade, she actually was creating things already. It's second grade. Okay. And she was, developing the ways to earn money, because her parents basically said, find ways that you can build a business, earn money. And so if people are watching that interview, obviously, and then the channel School of Hard Knocks, is excellent. You'll know that there is 90% of the people that are multimillionaires, billionaires, dropped out of college or have no college degree. Here's what drives me crazy is you have parents that know the game, and yet when their kids graduate, they're still sending them to college and university just to have it as a backup. A backup for what?
Yeah.
Right? So it goes back to what you said, Janine, about consciousness and your awareness, because you can basically see from behind here as an observer what's actually going on. And you can, once you have that awareness, you can learn how to play the game, because it is a game. We're in the matrix. It's a game.
Yeah, well, that's what they call people players. To me, the players thing is more of a derogatory term, because generally I've been into the world of these billionaires. I've gone into their company. I've been to see what it's like in those worlds, and you can see that, you can feel the playing. It's all about a mask, what they want to get out of people, business. You scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. That old system, it's going to break down, because when we do raise our consciousness, we can feel integrity. You can feel BS. You can feel lies. You can feel manipulation. The facade is broken down by raising your frequency, by being in your heart center, by clearing, the lies and the mistrust. Stop lying. For one, stop lying to people, because if you lie, you're going to get lied to. Stop gossiping about people, because if you gossip, you're going to be gossiped about. What do you think these gossip magazines are about? It's making gossip into the mass consciousness. There's always an agenda behind these things. So when we start to figure that out, why isn't that being taught in school? And then I was thinking about this the other day. So as spiritual beings on this earth, we're told that people have to learn their own lessons. They've got to learn the hard way. Who made those rules? So I'd rather help people more than see people keep falling over because they're just not getting it. How much struggle do you have to watch people go through because they haven't learned their lesson yet? But if you don't know what the lesson is, how are you meant to learn it? That's the way, so I've been looking at it from that perspective. Who made these rules in this matrix? This is my question this week that I'm pondering. Because
when you go against the matrix, then that's where we have downfalls, right? We have problems with the tax department. We have problems with the education system, things like that. I feel very optimistic after I look at some of these interviews, because there's people that are teaching others for free on social platforms that are free. And these people that are in their 20s and 30s that are coming out right now, that are creators, like creating technologies and creating, where there's a gap in society, they're creating, systems, education, products, things like that. It's just like, it blows me away. It's like, wow, I wish we had that when we were younger, but I don't regret anything. Like, I'm 55 years old and I'm able to witness I have tremendous faith and optimism for the younger people, because I think that they are waking up more than any other demographic out there.
Yeah, well, they've had the internet to help do that. It's got its positive side in that it's given us access to information and knowledge that we wouldn't have had even 30, 40 years ago when we were young. But there is also a downside of it as well, and that's the addictive nature of it. That's the hooking people into it, and that's the misinformation that's out there as well. And we've talked about it many times on here, that the negative aspect of the AI side of it as well. I've seen something on YouTube today when I was doing some research about this company that will provide you with all these things, and it's all free and it's all AI. It's like free this, free that, free the other, free. I'm like, all that glitters is not gold, came into my mind with some, with that kind of thing. There's something just doesn't feel right about it.
There's a personal judgment a person has to make on what's presented to them, and based on their level of awareness. There's some people that will live and die without awareness and just not see it.
Yeah.
And that's I believe that's the blueprint that they chose when they volunteered to come here. And that's why you see this person behave a certain way, or that person behave a certain way, and it might be opposite to what we believe in our lives or whatever, or how we conduct our lives. And it's just like, well, they're doing them. I right, like now more than ever, I offer no judgment for that, because that person's just figuring it out like we are.
Yeah.
And we keep saying, how come the education system is not teaching that? But the fact of the matter is that we can create our own education system, and people are like, there's companies that are educating people, like with their YouTube accounts, etc., on how to pay off your mortgage in 3 years rather than 25, how to do this, how to do that. It's all there for us. We just need to tap into it.
Yeah.
So there's more information than ever, because before the internet, we had to rely on what? Well, books from the library or colleges. That's it. So talk about indoctrination. Those what those books are. You can take one book out of a library, fiction. I don't read fiction anymore. I'm not interested in fiction, because when you're living in the matrix, you can have so much fun. It's like you create your own, we're creating our own story, right? So, anyways, I'm not interested in fiction, but you can actually pick up a fiction book, read it, but it could go 10 different ways. And that's just like our life. It could go 10 different ways. It doesn't have to be like what society or the matrix, goes out for us. But this is what you should wear when you're in your 50s. This is what's trending in your 50s. This is this, that, whatever. I say close the book on all of that. Do what people want to do. It's just that it's recommended to do this, recommended to do that. And it's just like, I'm done with it all. I'm so done with it all.
There has to be, I mean, I agree with you, but there first has to be the awareness to go and seek that information.
Yeah, but we
Because
can't worry about those people,
that's
right?
not
So,
worrying about, but it's just that I think that's the switch that's slowly happening now, is that
yes.
people are questioning things and they are curious about things where I don't think it really existed much in the past. They were like the outliers. So now people are starting to look. So we get information as the consciousness shifts. That's when the higher shifts will be made. But until people are actually, have the thing to even look for the information, they could be everything out there in their face and they're not gonna see it.
They're not going to see it. They're not going
They're
to
not on
hear
the
it. I
frequency.
agree.
Nope.
Yeah, and
No,
it's
no,
also
they don't
down
see
to
it at
the
all.
how vulnerable people are in, how easily some people are programmed. I mean,
Yep.
it's like some people can be hypnotized and some people can't be hypnotized.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. Well, and I've noticed a change, because I mean, I don't do lives on Instagram anymore. I haven't been live on Instagram. It'll be 2 years in January. I think I've done one video in that 2 years. Because I don't like the feel of it. I don't like the feel of this AI energy coming through, and I can feel it. I'm extremely sensitive to these things. But what I have noticed is I keep a connection to some of my followers, and I use the term loosely, on there with animals. We all like animals, so we share good animal videos. I think you see a funny animal video and it brings a
Yeah.
little
I
bit of
love
joy
it.
into your life. That's why I do it. And I've started getting sent AI animal stuff now. It's like it's tapped
Yeah.
into the one thing that, I was seeing was a little bit of pure love and joy. And it started to pollute that already with these AI animals. I don't want to watch AI animals. I want, I like real animals,
Yeah.
real furry creatures. The system now it's gone beyond what that guy was talking about in the social system into this
Right.
completely different kind of cyborg AI system
Oh
that
yeah, it's
it
way deeper.
much deeper, much more powerful on the effect it has on the human consciousness, because for one, it's causing confusion. Even like I'm looking at stuff now and going, is that real or is that AI? What
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
doing to the human mind. And I'd written something about this a while back and I forgot to mention it. Remember when Biden was on TV all the time and he used to talk gibberish. He would
Yep.
be talking gibberish. So people at home are like, what? What was that? What's he saying? Causes confusion to the human mind. Well, what that does is open up the door to the subconscious. Did you know that? When you confuse people, it
Yeah.
actually gives you access to program them when they're confused.
Yeah.
So this is another part of this agenda that people aren't seeing with all this AI stuff. Is it real? Is it not? Then that's being hooked into the metaverse. Kids are being addicted to things like virtual reality. They don't know what's real, what's virtual, what's AI anymore. And it's all about this nasty timeline that we've talked about in episode 1, with this cyborg timeline, where people become part of the machine. Consciousness becomes part of the machine. Then you're controlled. So there is a very dark timeline. There is the opposite to that, where people are getting completely out of the system and living in these beautiful earthships that are homes that are self-sufficient and stuff like that. They grow their own food. They're getting out of the system. They've got communities that they've put together. But I believe there's a middle road that we can create, because we're powerful, and we can create new banking systems, new education systems that work on the premise of integrity and what is for the highest good of all, it not taking advantage of people, and not separating society into these classes, which now we're losing. Middle class is like upper class, rich elites, and the poorer, lower class, working, not even working class. Working class people work. There's a class beneath that can't work. And there's a lot of people that can't, for many different reasons, whether it's lack of education, whether it's disability, whether it's mental health, and so on and so forth. So we have the ability to be able to create a good future for mankind, but that is going to take work, and that's going to take awareness, and people coming together and manifesting it together.
100%, Janine. And you know what? We're tested all the time, I feel. And just, I think as a collective, we are tested. So I'll give you an example. So in 30 minutes away from here is a suburb out of Vancouver that is Richmond, British Columbia. And one of the Indian tribes have come and said, that's ours, we want it back. And so this is going back and forth in a court. This has been going back and forth in a court. And the Supreme Court had basically said that they can have that property back. On that property is basically businesses like Amazon, some big companies, and there's also people who live there with their residences in townhouses, condos, homes. So it was ruled in a court of law, and no one knew about the previous 7 years that this was happening, but it was ruled in a court of law that they can come and take that back. And so the way I see it is, like, so I currently don't own any property here, but you would think that everybody in Canada that says they love Canada, especially after what's going on in the States, when, you know, the US president had asked for more customs agents at the, you know, borders, because there's so much fentanyl and whatnot coming across. You would think that these Canadians that are so patriotic, that say Canada first, we're Canadian, this, whatever, all that, they're more content to go and fight against the, you know, the guy in the States, the US president there, that's trying to do right for his country. They're not even meowing or barking at the fact that their property can be next taken away. So they're not even rallying with, you know, what's going on in Richmond, British Columbia, or the province of British Columbia for that matter. And so they're nowhere to be found, but yet they'll still be on social media knocking the politician or whatever, but they're not coming to, hey, you know, this is happening in Canada, we can't let it happen, let's all rally. But meanwhile, what do we get out in the east coast of Ontario is we get no kings protests in Canada. Because the US is doing it, which is utterly,
what is that?
Okay, so it's utterly ridiculous. So what it is that they're protesting. It's a Democratic led, or George Soros or evil, whoever's behind it and funding it, is saying no kings because they're going against like Donald Trump. But then they have the Canadians.
Trump thinks he's king.
A king. Okay. Yeah, meanwhile, it's like we people don't realize how ridiculous they look, especially more so our fellow Canadians in Ontario that had this, or maybe they had it in Vancouver too, no king's protest. Meanwhile, we have a king here, right? So we actually have a king, King Charles.
That is really funny.
Which is ridiculous. These people don't even realize how ridiculous it was. And I would wish that at least some point there'd be some good journalists out there that would go and interview these people and just ask the freaking right questions.
What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Like you are led by King Charles. That is still happening. We are the part of the crown. And meanwhile, here's what's even more ridiculous. When we had the queen, queens are indivisible, just like kings are. So they're king and queen of England. They shouldn't be king and queen of Canada or have anything to do with Canada because they're indivisible. So they're already breaking the law. And so people are saying no kings, no kings. And it's like,
I don't get it.
oh, and
It's all just big smoke screens everywhere, as way I see it, for stuff that's being sneaked in through back doors, lobbies, and stuff like that. New laws
division,
being,
create
yeah,
division,
yeah,
create, there's much division with the people. So that keeps them angry. So they do not wake up. They do not catch a glimmer of any type of consciousness upgrade when they're
exactly.
angry,
Yeah. Well,
right?
when you're angry, it shuts your heart down.
Yeah,
And that's where your power
100%.
is. That's your
Yep,
powerhouse to raise you up into, let's all get together and stop being controlled, and start making the future that we want to live in. So that's the problem. People are being mind controlled. To, well, you think about that as somebody pulling strings like puppets and stuff like that. But what most people don't realize, that by watching television, they're being controlled. That most
yeah,
people are not aware of, that you drop into theta brainwave frequency when you're watching television for a long time, or movies. Again, the subconscious doors are open, so what's in there can be dropped into your consciousness, and it becomes a belief that you're fighting for, and it's not really what you should be fighting for. And that's the way it works. The learning about consciousness has been one of the most important things. I think it's one of the most important things anyone can learn about. Because it's what creates our world. Our collective consciousness is what's manifesting what's out there. And people point the finger and go, look how bad that is. They're bad, they're evil, they're this, they're that. It's like, guys, it's a reflection of what's in you. Clean yourself
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Clean your own mind up, clean your own memories up, clean your own judgment, your fears, your anger, your racism. People will say they're not racist, but then you ask them, well, if your 18-year-old daughter came home with a big black guy, are you going to be pleased about it? They'll say no. Well, that's racism, guys.
yeah,
People don't realize what it is. It's in there, it's deep, and it's hidden, and people don't want to admit to it, but it's still a massive problem on our planet. That's part of the social matrix, and to keep them separate as well. And there's still, sexism is still rife on this planet as well, to the point, as I was saying, in other countries, who in their right mind thinks it's okay to marry a 9-year-old girl to a fully grown man?
Mm.
It's
well,
legal pedophilia.
there's, yeah, yeah, 100%. But there's obviously a large group, millions of people that believe that. And I think that if they're in one area that they believe in that and all of that, like I just had to see that movie, Stoning of Soraya. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
The Stoning of Soraya M. It just was like, holy, these people, like what they do. And then they like say that they are peaceful. Okay, that's one thing wherever they are. But when they go elsewhere in parts of the world and they push upon other people, like Sharia law, like, right? And so they're saying, we're coming for you because you guys aren't having kids in Canada or the United States, and we're having big families, and it's just a matter of time before we replace you all.
Yeah, and it's
That's taught.
propagated. It's
Yeah,
propagated, as we know,
it's taught.
and it's part of the agenda to keep people weak and keep them controlled and fighting one another. And the education system that you mentioned as well, Laura, it's like, give me the boy till he's 7 and I'll show you the man. Those first 7 years are the most important years of our educational life. There are some good schools out there, though, like the Steiner schools and stuff like that, but they're expensive to ordinary people. And then you've got those schools in Russia where the kids actually build the schools, and there's no age separation. So you've got 12-year-olds with 16-year-olds.
Montessori, yeah, Montessori.
Montessori
Yeah,
too. Yeah, we have that
yeah,
here too. Yeah.
yeah. So it does exist, but most people are not even aware of it, that you're allowed to do it. Because again, the law, you've got to go to school. You've got to send your child to school and get them into the system. But when they're 16 or younger, even get them to open a bank account.
Yeah.
As I say, there's also pressure on the parents that if you're not sending your kid to private school, oh my God, you're not a good parent. So
Yeah.
that's where it gets even more complicated. And the parents thinking they're doing the right thing by sending the kids there because also they're going to get pushed back. So they'd rather just, okay, this is what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. I came from a home where I didn't go to private school. I did go to college. I did go to university, but it was building studies. It's absolutely no good to me now unless I want to build a house. Um, and I was thinking about it the other day, the stuff we learn as well, like calculus. I've never met anyone. I've met one person in the 60 years I've been on this planet that actually uses calculus in their daily life. One.
Yeah, one. It's just it is antiquated system, but at the same time, again, it comes back to awareness. And if parents, oh, that would be heaven on earth if both parents were awake. They're both awake, then they're going to be teaching their kids at home as well, just through example. I like, my boyfriend, he is a builder, so he deals with fractions and he deals with all sorts of math equations, right? So that served him well. But for many of us, not so much. But why should it be abroad on the curriculum for us when it's just for really a niche?
Yeah, some of it's okay. I liked maths, it's okay, but I didn't like calculus. I'm like, no, that's just useless. And I knew it was useless when they were teaching me
Trigonometry
intuition.
and algebra were useless to me too.
Oh,
Trigonometry.
trigonometry.
Yeah, see, that was one of my favorite subjects, but my mathematical mind was quite well developed, so I enjoyed doing it. But and it served me well in the building industry when I was a draftsman. So it's everyone's different. I was more into that. It was either that or art when I was at school. So it's maths and art were my subjects, and physics. That's why I went into architecture. But here we are, completely different career.
But I think
But
it would be so great if parents look at, I mean, that's the other thing with the school system is the whole grading system and the competitiveness and the comparing, and you're not smart because you don't get grades. That child could be a musical genius or an artistic genius, but because they didn't do well on their math test or their spelling test, they're now considered, oh, you didn't get, they're punished for it. A lot of parents would punish kids if they
Yeah,
didn't do well. Meanwhile, look at what they're doing well and let them excel at that and leave all the other stuff. I mean, expose them maybe to learning certain skills or whatever, but it's so backwards how you're penalized for not doing well. And some kids, it's torture for them that just don't have the capacity to learn things.
yeah,
I mean, math, I was never ever good at math, but I could spell anything. I could spell a word I'd never even seen before.
yeah,
Like certain things that you have affinity for and other
yeah,
things. Math, I like if I had to like if you said I had to multiply things in my head right now, I'd probably freeze. You know,
yeah,
so it's really funny.
Well, we're the ones that are going to change things. So, it's up to you guys at home to start opening up your mind to other options than this systems that we've been taught are the only way forward. They're not. The world is a changing place. The next 5 years is going to be a really big changes happening on the planet, and we're the ones that are making it happen. So remember who you are, step into your power, and start creating the world you want to see and want to live in and want your grandchildren to live in, and so on.
you're here. You're
Okay.
here.
Okay, well, I think we've hit the end of the road today with that one. And thanks for joining me, ladies. We'll see you next time on Talking Timelines.
Disclaimer: the content in this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The views, opinions, and information shared do not necessarily represent those of the hosts, but is provided for additional perspectives. None of the hosts are medical professionals, so we do not dispense medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any health-related issues. And thank you for listening to Talking Timelines.